Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials live hangout. So good to be hanging out with you guys as we do every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We've got a great show coming up. We've got my good friend Mark Baxter is joining us in just a moment. A guy that has been doing this learn to sing, teach singing thing for longer than I've been doing it, and he has got such a wealth of experience and expertise to share with us. And we're going to be tackling what is a pretty present conversation, the topic of digital disruption. We're going to be talking about that in a moment. Before we do, just a few things to cover. Firstly, hello to everyone in the live chat. Hey, if you're watching this as a replay, don't click away just because you're not watching it live. We love people who actually, in fact, most of you watch this as a replay, and so it's great to have you join us. If you're watching this live, then make sure you start asking your questions. Linda is collating those live questions for us into a live document, and we'll be answering. Mark and I will be doing our best to answer some of your questions a little bit later in the show. If you are watching this as a replay, make sure you ask your questions in the comment section below, and in the coming days and weeks I'll be sure to answer those, and Mark might even be able to jump in and answer some of those questions as well. Hey, just hope many of you caught the new big video that went live last week on how the voice works. I hope some of you were able to see that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it taught you something. If you haven't seen it, can I encourage you to go and have a watch of it? As you know, we have new videos going. We have this live video every Monday, and then we have two pre-record videos, one on Wednesday and one on Friday. But every now and then I put an extra amount of effort and love and money into a production of a video. And last week it went live, this How the Voice Works. It's got a tremendous amount of great animation and video footage, and a lot of the feedback I've been getting is that it's really created some clarity in people's thinking around how the voice works. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. I also want to give a shout out to those of you who have been so kind enough to donate to the channel in the last couple of weeks. I won't go into the length of mentioning you all by name, but thank you very much for those of you who have, thrown a few bob into the channel. It's so encouraging. It's humbling to think that you guys believe in what we're doing here on the channel enough to donate. And you can do that if you're interested by going across to the channel page, and there's a little PayPal donation icon that you can have a look at there. So thank you to those of you who have been doing that. I really appreciate it. Hey, the summer school, just to I told everyone last week, I just want to make sure the news gets out. For those of you who may have been thinking to join me at the summer school that I've been teaching at for the last 5 years, so summer being in the southern down here in the southern hemisphere, we're currently headed into winter. So I'm talking about in 6 months' time, I would have been participating, as I have the last 5 years, in a teaching voice at a summer school, and I've stepped away from that. It's my chapter there has come to an end. A good friend of mine is taking up the reins, Renee Suddy. She is awesome. But if you were thinking you would like to come and join me, then I just wanted to let everyone know I won't be there this summer. But can I highly recommend Renee to you? She is fabulous. In fact, if you own the exercise CD, Voice Essentials, Dr. Dan's Voice Essentials, the one that's down in the corner, anyway, you know the one. If you own it, the lady that's on that CD is Renee. And you can hear her. You'll be able to actually hear her on the new exercise CD that is coming out very soon. And just checking my internet connection there, everything seems to be fine. I've got a new exercise CD, Voice Essentials 2, that will become, isn't that creative? Voice Essentials 2. Maybe leave a comment, a live comment, guys, if you think you've got a better name. Anyway, Voice Essentials 2 is the working title, and we've got that coming out. Hopefully it'll drop into my website for purchase sometime. I'm aiming at late July, early August. Fingers crossed, hopefully that all happens. And Renee will be doing the female vocal lines on that again, because she's a long-term friend, but beyond that, she is just awesome, an awesome singer. So I wanted to let you all know that. Without further ado, let's get in here now. We've got some connection issues. I'm hoping now my Zoom has dropped out, and so here we go. That's interesting. Let's see if we can get Mark back before we go to a live chat, because we don't want to go to a live chat with Mark if he's not going to be there. I wonder if... There he is. He's back. I think that was my end, Mark, so don't stress. Let's get into this without any further ado. Don't you just love the tech issues that we face every week here on the live show?
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hey there, Mark. Good to have you join us. Thanks for joining us here at Voice Essentials. Just say hello so I can be certain that we've got audio.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's all good. We were having tech issues, weren't we, before the show with audio, and then suddenly, I think at my end, the Zoom dropped out. But we're back. Hey, thanks, mate, for joining us on today's show. So good to have you here. And for those who have not met Mark before, you may have seen actually what is my strongest performing video on my channel is a collaboration between Mark and myself. I think we did it, in fact, I can have a look over here. Actually, I can't see what the date is, but it was 18 months ago, was it, Mark? Might have been a little bit longer.
Easily a year ago, yeah.
Yeah,
at least a year.
Where we did a collaboration. In fact, it was your idea, wasn't it, Mark, to do this collab where we talked about the difference between the baritone voice and the tenor voice. And of course, we came under a bit of fire, didn't we, from that video? It's had over 300,000 views, so it's done quite well as far as YouTube goes. But we copped a bit of flack for it. Do you want to...
This is news to me, because as we were just talking, it's a collaboration video, so I have a version of it on my site.
Yeah.
There was no flack at all on my version of it. And so I'm just, 5 minutes ago was reading through some of the comments on your site, and yes, there's quite a bit of flack. And it's all against me, I might add.
Here is our right of reply, Mark, because the flack was targeted. Well, it was in one sense, yeah. It was targeted at you, but it was targeted at both of us, because it was basically accusing us of not knowing and not understanding the difference between a tenor and a baritone voice. And so I think this is our opportunity for right of reply. Do you want to just quickly go into maybe a contemporary understanding of the difference between baritone and tenor, and why you would classify yourself as a baritone?
Higher above what would be acceptable in classical circles.
Mm-hmm.
So it is more a genre beatdown that I read on your site than I think anything, because it is always quite dismissive to say somebody is lacking in technique when in truth you just don't like their style of singing. And so I went through this in college. I've handled these comments all my life. There is a difference between Eurocentric and Afrocentric sounds. And the ones that are near and dear to my heart are Afrocentric. Yeah. I grew up with it. I came of age with it. I have no desire to be a classical singer. Yep. And so it's what I pursued all my life. And so the sounds that come from me have origins on a completely different continent. And I think that's where a lot of the disparity lies.
Yeah. And I'm just getting some a notification here from Linda to say we've got a tech issue. I can't see the tech issue at my end, Linda. I'm gonna keep Here we go again, bleeding tech issues again. Okay, from Cockney. Guys, bear with us. I don't know why there would be buffering issues. Hopefully that's going to come good, and we're gonna push on. It's interesting when we talk about. So I'm a founding member of a group called the Ten Tenors. They're quite a well-known group now in Europe as well as Australia, and they tour through Europe, or certainly were recently, up to 9 months in a year. We, as a founding member, we were actually put together as the celebration for a TV station here called Channel 10. And we were originally called the Channel 10 Tenors. It was very corny. At the end of Nessun Dorma, we pulled out our white handkerchiefs and waved them around and dabbed each other's forehead and did the whole three tenors stuff. And the thing about it was that we were not 10 tenors, actually. We were probably 3 tenors and 7 baritones. But those 7 baritones were up in a tenor range, and with good technique, they were able to step up into that voicing. Now, they also, the wonderful thing about having 7 baritones with 3 tenors is they added, as you just said, that timbre, that weight to the sound, which I don't have, and I work hard to build a greater body of sound, but for the most part, I don't have it. And it was interesting. I must admit, when it first started, the comments on our video, I was a bit surprised at. It was probably an education, actually, for me here on YouTube, that so many people would have such a strong view of what a baritone or a tenor should be. And I think you've just spoken to it really well. We're not going to get bogged down in that today, because I think that is our right of reply is done. If people are that concerned, I can draw there. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Not a word.
Not. That actually shows your wealth of experience, and that's actually what I want to talk to today, because here we are in 2018. You and I are connecting. You're in the US. I'm here in Australia. What time is it where you are currently?
midnight.
Oh,
so
yeah, you Americans have been awesome. I've had a number of you on the channel recently, and you're all staying up until midnight to be on the channel. So thank you, Mark, for doing so. So here we are. We're doing this live, and you've been teaching online for quite some time also. You and I have both got without overstating it, we've got relatively successful channels. We're not the big boys when it comes to subscribers, but we've got a good body of subscribers, and a lot of people have learnt stuff off us online. So it bears the question worth asking: has YouTube killed the singing teacher? What are where is this all headed, Mark? Because you've been on this journey a lot longer than I have.
I have, and so I have pre-internet, I have pre-everything actually experience. I've been teaching now about 34 years, and had a big performing career before then. Made my living as a singer for about 15 years before that. And so when I started teaching, it was all word of mouth. It was all very organic. It was, if you did well for a few singers, they would go tell 2 singers, and then they would tell 2 singers, and you built yourself a practice that way. And it all made sense. So along came the internet, and then along came YouTube. And I remember the first video I saw of a singing teacher sort of like giving exercises. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is the end of what we do. I couldn't imagine how we could sustain careers after that with everything available, free, online. and the information, and that was, I don't know, I think YouTube's about 7 years old now, something like that.
Yeah, it's
8
still
years.
very young, isn't it?
Yeah. But my point is, so in that 8 years, I've, I was reluctant to join at first because I didn't think it was, I thought the videos needed to be quite generic because I didn't know whom I was speaking to. And now everybody understands that people like you and I put out a lot of content, and some people will put out more vocal oriented, meaning just versions of songs and give demonstrations of singing. I do very little of that. I like to talk about the psyche of the singer and a lot of the neurology of it. I just, speak to my interests, put it that way.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm saying is that there's now this division where everybody has kind of found their territory. And I think it parallels exactly what singers do, those who want to embark on a contemporary career, and they're wondering about their style, and they're wondering what genre they should be in and things. And what us vocal pedagogues have gone through on YouTube is exactly the same process that new singers must go through. And that is, you almost find yourself by default, by you speak to what you believe in, you state, things that you stand by. And when you do that as a singer, your song choice or the songs you write all should speak to who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And as you do that, you will amass people that agree with you.
Yeah.
And the internet is a great sort of like, polling place where you get to see how many people agree with you. And that is if they can find you. So, if you don't promote, I don't promote my site at all. So it's one of those things where I'm always, amazed that people find me in the first place, because there's just a glut of information out there.
Yeah.
But that's the same as people posting, versions of songs of theirs on YouTube, and some of them, get millions and millions of hits on it because it's resonating with people.
Yeah.
And, so obviously back when I was a singer-songwriter looking for that exposure, we literally had to drive in, New York City was the closest city. We had to drive in with the cassette tape in hand and hope to meet somebody on the street coming out of a publishing house or a record company. That was the only way to pass your music along. So It is so much easier now to gain contact, but it's also so crowded.
Yeah.
And so I think we were talking about this via email, as a young, as an 18-year-old, I would have died to have this kind of content available for free.
Yeah.
Because you had to go to the library or bookstore and buy a book on singing. And back then, everything was sheet music, and there were no even cassettes included with books back when I was young.
Yeah.
And so all this has evolved to become incredibly easy to gain the information. And I think that's a part of the problem. But there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. So I'm not going to speak to it like it's a problem. I just think it's something people ought to be aware of. And that is that difficulty is a huge aspect of long duration learning.
Yeah.
If things come too easily, it's compartmentalized differently by the brain than if you have to struggle and work for it. And I give you a quick example of, it's the concert that you bought tickets for 4 months in advance, stood online for, or waited on a lottery. That concert experience will be far more rewarding than for the VIP that slips in the back door, stands on the side of the stage, and watches the show for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the work you put in, the struggle to obtain the information, the struggle to absorb it. That's a part of a really important process that glues in that learning process, that makes you work for it. It makes for longer lasting skill sets and knowledge.
Well, it's interesting that you use that as an illustration, because I used to, many moons ago, when I first started teaching, I wanted to do the philanthropic thing. I wanted to help out people, and so I offered some free sessions, and I did that to a particular area of interest of singer that I was interested in. And you know what? The results I saw in those students were not great, and it's because it didn't cost them anything, and so they would often not turn up to lessons. They were very poor practices, and I thought, what is wrong with you people? I'm giving you this for free, and it just became very apparent to me that we as human beings, it's got to cost you something for you to really value it, and to then have that sense of connection, in this instance, to the learning. So with that and what you've just said in mind, when we think about learning to sing online, because as you and I and many others, and some great channels, Karen's in the live chat right now from SingWise, so there's some great channels out there producing really good quality stuff. Yes, there are some channels that the quality of it may not be, but there are good channels that people can engage with and get really high quality information from. What is the point, do you think, at which a person, if they're able to, now we understand that there are people who, by virtue of financial reasons, cannot afford to have singing lessons, and so we need to sort of acknowledge that and put that to the side. But for those people who can, what do you think that point is for people where they need to go, do you know what, I've got as much as I can out of YouTube? When do they step into a studio with someone like yourself or myself?
Well, I don't know about you, but that's the intro to every email these days. Love your channel. I've gotten as much as I can out of YouTube. I still feel I've hit a plateau.
Yeah.
What's the next step? How do I get to have lessons with you?
Yes.
And that's a great way to utilize YouTube. It's a great way for parents to make sure their kid has some ignition, has some investment in this.
Yeah.
And if they, let's say a 14-year-old wants to learn to sing rather than go directly into lessons. If I was a parent, my son doesn't sing, he's an adult now. But the point is, if I had a younger kid, I would say, great, here's some good YouTube channels. Let's see, have a go with it. And if this is something you're going to stick with, then we'll talk about finding some private instruction. I want to flip this coin for a second, though, because here's the downside of the internet as well for singers, and that is the glut of pretty damn good singing out there on YouTube. And so if I can click through 1,000 different performances, I don't have to pay a penny for them. I'm not going to have the emotional experience as I would as I go to a club or a show, and let's say I'm sitting there waiting for the act that I want to see in the opener or several of the openers.
Yeah.
I'm now sort of like in this collective spirit where people are waiting for the headliner. Often, in the old days, that's exactly how one would promote themselves, is to be an opening act. And so I find that the feedback, singers, very good singers, will feel their skills and their talent isn't of worth because they're not getting a lot of views on YouTube. Yeah. And that's a shame, because it's really a promotion game that allows for that exposure. Yeah. More than talent, worth, or that kind of thing. What I tell singers a lot is, I used to buy music and get water for free, and now I pay for water and music is for free. So in my lifetime, that's swapped. Switched. And I can't believe what water costs these days.
Yeah.
Bottle of water.
That's a great illustration. I say to a lot of my young singers, because it's not an unusual, you would have this as well, I think. It's not unusual for young singers to come into my studio and go, oh, I'm about to start a YouTube channel. And that generally gives me reason to want to talk about the psychology of what they're about to encounter. And I'm not simply talking about trolls, because trolls typically only come once the channel starts to gain a little bit of momentum and the algorithm starts to spread you know, your material a bit further and farther. The challenge, I think, now is...
Case in point is our collaboration video.
Yeah, case in point, right? Oh dear. The point being, and you've got to be ready for that. In fact, I say to students, you can't be ready for your first trial. It will hit you like a ton of bricks, a true trial. Even if you think you're going to be ready, you can't be ready. It'll T-bone you, and you anyway. The point being is that the challenge now, I think, is you to gain any momentum online, and I'm talking particularly on YouTube. The algorithm is built in such a way now that you actually have to kind of knock on the door of the algorithm like multiple times a week over at least a 12-month to 2-year period, and of that consistent work ethic that just keeps uploading constantly. It doesn't, obviously, if you're an artist, it doesn't have to be. In fact, I'd be encouraging it to not just be your material. You need to build a community of fan base. But the challenge to the young person is currently we've been, by virtue of TV talent shows, and those who watch my channel enough know how I feel about these programs. And if you don't watch my channel enough, it's not a good. I don't think highly.
I figured.
The point being is that young people have been taught this attitude of, you know, zero to hero in a 10-week program, and when they hit the realities of even, you know, the virtual space of YouTube, it doesn't happen. But that's because it doesn't happen for anyone like that. And you know, if it does, then you've literally won the lottery. That's what the odds of it happening are. Do you want to just quick talk to what you might find yourself saying to a student who's thinking, hey, I might want to do a YouTube thing? And
well, yeah, I'm not a YouTube expert, because exactly from what you're talking about with the algorithms, and there's just an approach to a digital promotion campaign, which is exactly what it is.
Yes.
In you know, I'm going to keep saying this because I'm old, but in my day, what you're referring to as a troll, we would call an a-hole, because it would be a live person in front of you.
Yeah.
You're on stage singing, and they're commenting on your singing as you're singing. Yeah. And so it's a lot easier. I felt it was a lot easier to handle those people when they're in your face. It tended to be they were drunk at first. Yeah. But the point is, when you're face to face with somebody who's not feeling what you're doing, often they just don't like you as a person. They're not feeling you. They don't agree with you. And it comes to that very quickly. So you gain some thick skin quickly as a live performer when you're out there trying to just find out who you are, find where the best venues are for you to play, where folks that would feel what you're doing are there. Yeah. All of that has changed so dramatically in the last 40 years that I really feel for young singers, because it's this, you know, social media really should be called antisocial media, because it's so isolating, and you get zero feedback other than the anonymity of these, you know, trolls. Either people love you to death or, you know, will have disparaging things to say. There's nothing in the middle. Everything is, you know, love it or hate it. Yeah. Thumbs up, thumbs down. And that's just not the way humans interact in a room when they're all together. Yeah. So it doesn't prepare people for performances, and and so I always tell young singers, it's called the music business, and that's an incorrect title. It should be called the promotion business, because the business of the going on in the music business, the business is all promotion. That's exactly what a label's job is to promote an artist. Yeah. Yeah. And so in you know, the earliest days in the 60s and 50s, when there were talent scouts and A&R really meant, artist representatives, and they would go acquisition, get an artist. All that has changed now. Obviously, they just look on social sites, just see who's got high numbers, and pour gasoline on that flame.
That flame, yeah. Yeah.
It has to be funny or sexy or something clever about the video.
Yeah.
Because just too many great singers online. And if you were just to post, a straight shot of you singing a song, it's gonna get lost in the.
It will be completely lost.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality that I want I always feel so. I always feel like I'm pouring, fire extinguishing, people's flames when they express this desire, this inspiration that they want to do this, YouTube thing. And look, if people want to do it, then they're going to do it. But I want people to be prepared for the reality of what the response is very, very likely to be. And you could be, you could be Michael Jackson in his beginning years. I'm talking before the Jackson 5, who's an unknown, who is literally of that talent, or whoever you like, Ed Sheeran, anyone.
They're out there.
They're out there. And I've said this to many of my young students, some of my older students as well, and that is what the internet has taught us is actually the world is full of talented people. It is chock full of them. I see some just outstanding, as you would, some outstanding talent on YouTube.
I think you tweeted today about a person I worked with, Aubrey Logan.
Do you work with her?
I have in the past, yes. And she is a great example of what I was saying before, what us voice teachers have gone through of like finding your style, find your niche, right? And so as a incredibly talented singer she's incorporated everything that's unique about her in her presentation. And so her ability to scat, her ability to take a pop song, what I'm always telling singers is you got to do cross-genre stuff.
Yeah.
The reason she stands out is that she takes songs that would never be done in a jazz idiom and brings them into that genre.
Yeah.
So immediately you get to know who she is and that she's got some sass, and she's really a great charismatic performer as well.
Yeah.
Great trombone chops as well.
Yeah.
You combine all that and you get a really compelling video. Yeah. Which then goes to bear of all the views that she's got.
It's I think, and if you're interested, if you're watching this and you're interested in learning more about, is it Audrey? Is that her name?
Aubrey.
I thought it was Aubrey. Yeah. You jump across to my Facebook page, which is in the description. The link to that is in the description section of this video, and it's one of the most recent posts. And I think I actually said my caption was, I dare you to watch this without saying wow, because it was outstanding, and that doesn't. The thing is that response in me is not drawn out of me very often, but I loved her. And you have to just take your hat off to. But there are people like Aubrey, the world over. I mean, there are so many of her who, may have not had the right guidance or what have you, or even have had the right guidance and for whatever reason they've got 137 views on their video, as opposed to Aubrey, who's having it's struck a chord with people and people are sharing the video, and yet you can have this 137 views and the person is showing similar levels of excellence.
Exactly.
So
the thinning of the herd, if you will, is if that person with the 137 views becomes discouraged and sort of bows out or no longer follows their passion.
Yeah.
To me, it's the way this industry now. We're only talking about if you want to become popular.
Yeah.
There's still nothing that prevents somebody from singing. You don't have to post on YouTube. There are plenty of outlets in churches and small clubs and groups, the world over, where we can sing, and you don't have to be popular to enjoy your passion. That has to be stated.
Can we? In fact, I want to let's just talk to that point before we go to some questions from our live chat. Do you know what? I'm a great believer, and I know you are too, in actually encouraging people not away from the desire to be popular, but in recognizing that I would much rather see a young singer where that becomes an outcome of their development, not the thrust, not the main drive of because if that will destroy you every day of the week wanting to be popular, because the chances that you will be are incredibly low. And yet if you can develop a sense of self-satisfaction and the joy of being able to do, and if you get to do it and be paid for it, even better. But for those of us who sing I led worship at my local church last night, and in fact the chapter of life I'm currently in, that's actually my only performance outlet.
Sure.
And I get great satisfaction personally out of doing that. And I'm doing it to a group of 20. Last night there were 23 of us. I'm not performing to sold out stadiums. I've been fortunate enough to be able to do the sold out stadiums as well. But the point being is I take just as much satisfaction out of performing to 23 friends.
I'll just say this, only because I, as a young man, was that guy that wanted to be famous and popular and was sort of passionate about it. And it wasn't until I started working with very popular singers that I had to look at myself in the mirror and go, oh, I didn't have a chance. because the level of exposure that's required. I'm an introvert, card-carrying introvert. I'm very comfortable on stage. The bigger the audience, the more comfortable I feel, because I go into a sort of an alter ego, if you will, and I love that experience. It's really rewarding, but it's what occurs off stage to become popular and sustain that level of notoriety requires a full-on 24/7. It's like you're a working mom with 3 kids. There is no minute off. It's a meet and greet afterwards. Then you got to go to radio stations and do the promo. And then it's just exhausting to hang around in the entourage of very popular singers. Yeah. Because they're working it 24/7. The only moment of peace is the 90 minutes they're on stage singing. That's the most calm. The rest of the day is chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, look, everyone, there is so much value in what Mark has just said. You've got to be very careful, haven't you, what you hope for. What you think you're buying into is often not the reality of, it's not that cool to live on a bus and tour. For the first 5 or 6 weeks, it's fun, but after that, it's just drudgery.
But well, this is my point. My point is that the guys and females that I've worked with that do think it's cool to live on a bus, that are excited by that, guess what? They become successful because you got to be on that bus a lot. Yeah. You got to stay on that bus. You got to be homeless basically. And it's a badge of honor. Yeah. And so when I saw what was really entailed, I had regional success as an artist. Yeah. And when I saw what was entailed to be national or worldwide, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm built for that. Yeah. Level of exposure. So it's just, there's a sort of a natural thinning, if you will. Yeah. And back in the day, record A&R people were really good at sifting out, at smelling that. Yeah. As I, sat across from conference tables several times.
Yes.
Negotiating record deals, and I know there was something missing, and now I know it was me.
Yeah.
That they weren't feeling that I was going to be a player, if you will.
Yeah.
And nowadays the internet does that sifting for them.
And thank you for having the maturity to share that with us, because I think that hopefully resonates with so many people who are watching this video, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that respond to what you've just said with me too, because you will go a long way to hear someone be as vulnerable as saying what you've just said. So I really appreciate that, and it just shows. The reason why I wanted to chat with you today is because the wealth of knowledge and expertise, and we haven't even got to the questions that we were going to talk to.
I'll put it this way, as I tell everybody, I've made every mistake you could possibly make.
Yeah.
And I've lived to tell about it, and that's experientially, that's, I think, a much better teacher. The failures and the trials and tribulations are far better teachers than success. Because when you stumble into success, you're not quite sure what you did right.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what I did wrong. I've been reminded of it many times.
That's very good. We do need to sort of cut. We've only got 5 minutes or so left to run. So let's if you're happy to just quickly stick around and answer some questions, let's go to the Q&A. We'll come back and just dig a little bit deeper into your experience of what to do right and what to do wrong. Yeah. Okay, so we've got some questions here. Just double check my audio there. So let's go to a question here from Justin. Tiller, my own voice never matches the recording. Can you please tell me why?
Because he's assuming his internal vibration, his internal resonance is projected out of his mouth, and it's not.
Yeah.
The recording is the truth, Justin.
Yeah, it's a second truth, isn't it? Would like it's
the only truth that the listeners will hear.
That's very true, yeah. And it's learning to adjust because of the bone conduction and everything, Justin, to be able to bring an alignment and association so that you can know. And that's where having a good singing teacher is of great benefit, because a good singing teacher is going to give you that response, that external response. But so too will a good recording. What do you find that you record voices onto, Mark? Just simply as maybe.
I think the cheaper the better, so that you get the worst possible feedback. And if that starts sounding good, then you know you're onto something. Aretha Franklin singing over the phone still sounded like Aretha Franklin.
Never a truer word was said. Excellent. Let's go to another question by Cockney Rebel. Whereabouts in America are you, Mark? Oh, here we go. My girlfriend is from Stratham, Georgia. Do you know?
So I'm not near Georgia.
No, just as a way of letting people know where you do teach, Mark. Just want to let people know.
I teach in North Hollywood, in Manhattan, New York, and in Boston.
Yeah,
I have 3 students.
It's so cool. I've always thought, it would be so cool to be able to say, yeah, I teach in New York, or I teach in Hollywood, or I'm here in little Brisbane, Australia. Okay, Telegram Sam, and it's so good to have Telegram Sam joining us, because he hasn't joined us for a little while, so it's good to have you back, Sam. For both Mark and Dan, is it normal to be afraid of consistency with singing, as in you've learnt a particular technique for the first time, but the next day you attempt to do it? That's actually the question. Let me read that again, and we'll see if we can form a question out of it. Have you got?
How do you create consistency? I would assume.
Yeah, is it normal to be afraid of consistency with singing?
I think he's paranoid he's not going to be consistent.
Yeah.
And there's no better way to be inconsistent than to be paranoid about it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There's some new research coming out, and it is relatively new, that shows that your voice, when you're with a new teacher, will often respond to new exercises and give new results very quickly. But after a number of weeks, the voice will sort of become a little bit, used to that new activity, and the benefits of that activity actually start to reduce over time. And so peppering away at the same activity over time, does the benefits actually become less and less.
I liken singing a lot to comedy, and I don't mean that people laugh at our voice. I mean that in order to be a successful comedian, you have to tell the same joke night after night after night after night, and it has to be funny. And the worst thing a comedian can do is to try and tell the same joke the same way.
Yeah.
And so the words will be the same, but there will be slight micro little timing or inflections here or there as he or she is feeling out the audience. And that's the real sign of the great ones, if you will.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah.
Exactly. Even though the reading technique, if you will, a subset of behaviors, it's that making it fresh each and every day. So there has to be a little kind of screw loose in every great singer, where you're going to dive in and try to make this, brand new each and every day.
Yeah. Cool. This one's from that's great, Mark. This is from Mark. How much time should somebody spend practicing their vocals every day?
At least an hour.
At least an hour? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't have a time limit on it.
Mm-hmm.
I sing all day, every day. I don't see if there's something wrong and you're fatiguing, then that should be adjusted anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's go to one final question from Matt. I'm going. You're a good person to respond to this, Mark. So, Matt, well done for asking this question of the right person. And then we're going to finish for today. I am going to be doing this is Matt. I am going to be doing a workout goal at the gym I go to, and was going to incorporate vocal exercises when I get home. Is this a good thing?
So he's going to work out and then go home and vocalize.
I think so.
All right. I like to work out and vocalize.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens with the air, the management of the air when you're working out is good for the workout if you're not holding or clamping with your larynx. It's much better for your body, and it's really good for those core muscle, for the apogee, if you will, to be working out while vocalizing.
Yeah, cool.
Madonna, Beyonce, Mick Jagger, Rod Stewart will run 10 miles and sing their tour when they're prepping.
Mm-hmm. So they're developing that stamina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's the running and singing at the same time. Those are all very active performers.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to join the two together.
Great. Awesome. Mark, thank you so much for your time and your input today. And, I consider you a good friend here on YouTube. And, and we've been in the trenches, unbeknownst to you. We've been in the trenches together for the last...
I'm glad I didn't know.
No. Well, I didn't want to bother you with it. I thought if you see it, you'll see it. If you don't, you don't. We had our opportunity for right of reply earlier, so that has been good. Everyone, I want you to go and check out Mark's channel and let Mark know how much you appreciate him. If you haven't subscribed, I'm just going to say goodbye, Mark, because I'm just going to go to a single screen here. If you haven't checked out Mark's channel, please go and do so. Subscribe. He puts out some great videos, and in fact, if you've watched our difference between tenor and baritone video, you'll see we tried to have a lot of fun with it. That's what Mark does. He doesn't take himself, and I'm the same. We try not to take ourselves too seriously. At the end of the day, all we're doing is singing. We're not, doing brain surgery here. We're not, first responders. to tragic events. We are singing teachers, and look, I know you'll get a lot of value out of Mark's channel. And look, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. So much good stuff there from Mark this week, and it has been so good. I've wanted to have Mark back on the channel for quite some time, so it was a real thrill for me. Also, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got Gillian Kays and Jeremy Fisher will be joining us from the UK, and I'm really looking forward. They're another couple that I've known for many years, and some of the world's leading experts on voice. And that's what we've been getting here every second Monday, is these top-notch people like Mark, who are just some of the world's leading experts on voice. So I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, please leave a thumbs up on the video. If you've never joined us before, welcome, firstly. And secondly, make sure you check out my channel. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the white bell icon, because it's the white bell icon that's going to give you the what is it going to give you? It's going to make sure you get the notifications for when we go live. And we would love to see you here every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in the next Voice Essentials video. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.